This story is about how my girlfriend, Emma, asked for a break to figure out things with her ex, James, and promised she'd come back if it didn't work out. Well, I made sure she came back to nothing. Hey everyone, after reading a lot of similar stories here, I figured it was time to share my own. So, here's the deal. My name's Ethan. I'm 32, and until recently, I thought I was marrying the love of my life. Emma, we had been together for almost 5 years, and for most of that time, I thought we were solid. Now, I'm sitting here, thinking about how I didn't see the signs sooner. Emma and I met at a mutual friend's wedding. She had this magnetic energy about her, confident, funny, and totally my type. I dated before, but no one made me feel like she did. We clicked right away and moved in together after a year. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. We had similar goals: careers, marriage, kids one day. She was a freelance photographer, and I worked as a financial consultant, so our schedules matched pretty well. We had talked about marriage for a while, but it wasn't until last summer that I proposed. It wasn't a grand affair, just a quiet dinner at home. Emma seemed thrilled. She cried, hugged me, and said yes. We started planning our future wedding by the beach, a small guest list, and a cozy venue. Everything was falling into place, or so I thought. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Emma's excitement for the wedding started to fade. At first, she was all about picking flowers and talking about dresses, but soon it became a chore. I'd ask her things like, "Have you decided on bridesmaids?" And she'd just brush it off, still thinking about it. Same with the dress, the cake, even the venue. Everything I thought we were excited about just started to feel like a burden for her. I told myself it was just stress. Planning a wedding can be overwhelming, right? Plus, Emma was juggling a ton of client projects, so I figured she'd come around. Then came the night that changed everything. We were hanging out with some friends, playing that "Who Would You Date Again" game. You know the one. It was all fun and laughs until the question came: which relationship would you relive? Without missing a beat, Emma said, "Probably James." Just like that, her college ex. The room went dead silent. She laughed awkwardly and tried to cover it up. I mean, not that I'd want to actually. It's just, part of my past. I wanted to call her out right there, but we were with friends. Later, when we were alone, I asked, "Why, James? Why would you say that?" She shrugged it off. "It's just a dumb game. Don't take it so seriously." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then her behavior started to get worse. She was always on her phone, texting with that same sly smile, and making excuses to bail on plans. "Sorry, I've got a work thing." Or, "I promised my friend I'd hang out this weekend." It wasn't anything major, but it was starting to pile up. I felt like I was becoming less of a priority to her. Then, one Friday night, everything exploded. I came home early from work, excited to spend some quiet time with Emma, but when I walked in, the energy was off. She was sitting on the couch, staring at her laptop, not working, just staring. "Hey, I'm home," I said, trying to break the silence. "You're early," she responded, like it was a bad thing. I went to the kitchen to make dinner, but the silence was unbearable. Finally, I turned to her and asked, "Is everything okay?" She closed her laptop, looked at me and said, "Actually, there's something I need to talk to you about." My stomach dropped. I had that gut feeling something was coming, and it wasn't good. She started hesitating, like she was trying to find the right words. Then, she finally said it. "I've been thinking about us and about James. I think I need some time to figure things out. I want to take a break and see if there's still something between us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want to take a break to date your ex? Are you kidding me?" I said. "We're engaged." "It's not like that," she said quickly, trying to smooth things over. "I just need to know if I'm making the right choice with you. If it doesn't work out with James, I'll come back, I promise." And that's when I realized just how deep her audacity ran. She honestly thought I'd sit around waiting for her to figure out if I was good enough. That's when something inside me snapped. I didn't yell. I just sat there, staring at her, wondering how the hell I didn't see this coming. "So what does this break mean to you?" I asked, my voice calm, though I was anything but. She sat up straighter, like she had rehearsed this. "I think we need some space," she said. I need to figure out if my feelings for James are real. And you can take time to think about us too. I couldn't believe the nerve. Wait, you want to date your ex, but I'm supposed to reflect on us? What kind of backwards logic is that? I leaned in. I'm not just going to sit here while you go off with some guy who treated you like trash. What about what you owe me? Her face hardened, and for the first time, I saw just how stubborn she could be. I'm not asking for permission, Ethan. I'm telling you what I need. That hit different. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. I stood up, pacing, trying to keep my cool. So, you're just going to pack your things and run back to James? Is that it? No, she snapped. It's not like that. I just need clarity. Clarity? I almost laughed. You owe it to yourself? What about me, Emma? We're engaged. We were supposed to be building a life together. And now you're telling me you need to test drive your ex to see if I'm good enough? You never even realized how hurtful that is, do you? She avoided my gaze, and I knew this conversation was over. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Take your break. She looked at me, expecting me to fight for her. But when I didn't, she stood up, grabbed her stuff, and mumbled, I'll stay at my mom's. We'll talk when I've had some time. As soon as she left, I called my best friend, Max. Max and I had been through a lot together, and I knew he'd tell me straight. Dude, she's not worth it, he said, after I explained everything. If she can't see what she has with you, then it's her loss. I nodded, but I still couldn't shake the feeling of losing. The future I thought we were building together, the life, the marriage, the kids, all of it was just gone. We stayed up late talking and watching TV. By 10:30 p.m., I think she might have realized how foolish she sounded the day before. I dragged myself to the kitchen to make coffee. There was no way I was dealing with this nonsense before caffeine. As I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee, my mind raced. She really had the nerve to come back and act like I was the one who owed her patience. It wasn't anger I felt, at least. Not anymore. It was more disbelief. How could someone be so oblivious, so wrapped up in their own fantasy that they thought they could just sell me whatever excuse she had? I stepped aside and let her in without a word. She walked in like she still belonged here, sitting on the couch like it was any other day. Thanks for letting me come by, she said softly, like she was doing me a favor. I leaned against the wall. What's up? She took a deep breath, her hands clasped together like she was preparing for a big performance. I've been thinking a lot, she began. Here we go. And I think I've come up with a way for us to move forward. I raised an eyebrow. Is that your big plan? She nodded, acting like she'd just solved a world crisis. It's practical. Ethan, we've put so much time, effort, and money into this relationship. I don't want to throw it all away over something that might not even matter in the long run. That phrase kept bouncing around in my head. She was talking about our relationship like it was some investment portfolio. She didn't want to write it off. Instead, I gave her nothing. I just stared at her, silent. I just don't want you to think this means I don't care, she added quickly, trying to fill the silence. I just need some space to figure out what I really want. It's not forever. Got it, I said, nodding. For a moment, she just stared at me, trying to read my face, but I wasn't giving her anything. I let her stew in her own awkwardness. She stood up, smoothing her hands over her jeans. I'll stay at my mom's for a bit, she said. It's not forever. We'll talk once I've had some time. Perfect little fantasy life. But she didn't get it. This wasn't her decision anymore. I walked over to the window and watched her car pull out of the driveway. She was probably feeling relieved, thinking she'd bought herself some time to figure things out with James. Let her think that. The truth was, I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to fight for someone who thought it was okay to keep me on the back burner while she explored her doubts. She could have her break. I had no intention of sitting here pining for her to come back. This wasn't about playing games or getting even. It was about moving forward. She'd made her choice, and so had I. I spent the next week setting things in motion. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clearing out every trace of her and taking back control. I started with the wedding plans. I grabbed my laptop and canceled everything: the venue, the photographer, the caterer. It all had to go. Some deposits were non-refundable, but I didn't care. I called my buddy Max, who hooked me up with a real estate agent. Within days, I had the paperwork ready to list the house. My plan was simple: sell the house, move on, and leave Tessa with absolutely nothing to come back to. She wanted space to figure out her life. She could do that from scratch. One part was almost too satisfying. Tessa had left all her stuff behind. Her fantasy with James wasn't all it was cracked up to be. I couldn't resist seeing how this would play out. Sure, I replied. Come by tomorrow. The next day, she showed up, and the look on her face was priceless. She stepped inside and froze. Her eyes darted around the bare walls, the empty shelves, the moving boxes stacked in the corner. What's going on here? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm selling the house, I said casually, like I was talking to a neighbor. Leaning against the counter, her jaw dropped. You're kidding? I didn't think you'd take me seriously, I interrupted. You said you needed space to figure out if you wanted me, or James, so I gave it to you. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. But I didn't mean it like this. I thought you understood. I wasn't ending things. I just needed clarity. I laughed, shaking my head. Clarity, Tessa? You didn't want clarity. You wanted a safety net. You thought you could run off, test the waters with James, and then waltz back here like nothing happened. No, I wasn't, she started. I swear I panicked, she said, voice cracking. I was scared, but I know now that it's you. It's always been you. Please. We can fix this. We can still get married. I yanked my arm away, shaking my head. No, we can't. You made your choice, Tessa. You chose doubt. You chose James. And now I'm choosing me. Her face crumpled, and she started sobbing. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mom. I'd barely said hello before she launched into it. Ethan, why am I hearing from Aunt Sharon that the wedding's cancelled? Is this true? I froze, the words catching me off guard. The only people who knew the wedding was off were me and Tessa. I hadn't even told my family yet because, honestly, I didn't want to deal with their reactions. But now the news was out, and I was wondering how Aunt Sharon had heard about it. Where did she get that from? I asked cautiously, already suspecting the answer. It was Tessa, of course. She'd made her choice, and I had moved on. Well, you need to do some damage control, my mom said sharply. Half the family is talking about this, and they all think you blindsided her. Damage control? That's what this had come down to now. Not only had Tessa managed to weave her way into my family's conversations, but she'd spun the whole thing into a pity party for herself. I should have let it go. I should have chalked it up to her being petty and left it at that. But when I got another call later that same day, I realized she wasn't done. She was dragging my name into her personal sob story, telling anyone who'd listen. I thanked my boss for letting me know and hung up, my blood boiling. This wasn't about closure anymore, or fixing things. She was deliberately trying to sabotage my life, painting herself as the victim to anyone who would give her 5 minutes of attention. That was the last straw. I'd stayed quiet up until now, thinking it was the mature thing to do. But if she wanted to play games, I wasn't going to let her. I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email. She didn't deserve access to my life anymore. Not after how she'd tried to twist everything. The fallout wasn't easy. My mom wasn't thrilled about me handling it so bluntly, and a few relatives still whispered about how I could throw away such a good thing. But I knew the truth, and that was enough. What Tessa had done only showed me how little respect she had for me or the relationship we'd shared. If anything, I was even more grateful that I had cut ties with her. I laid it all out for my mom. No embellishments, just the facts. Look, I told her over coffee. I didn't throw away a good thing. She bailed on me for her ex. Plain and simple. I tried to be civil, but now she's out here spinning tales like she's the victim. I'm not letting her trash my name. Mom gave me that classic disapproving look, the one that could make a grown man feel like a teenager again. I get it, Ethan, but you could have been more tactful. Tactful? Mom, she's airing our dirty laundry to anyone who'll listen. Later, I ran into Mark, one of the guys from work. Hey man, I heard you left Tessa high and dry. What's up with that? I stared at him, barely believing the audacity. You heard wrong, Mark. She ditched me to figure things out with her ex. If you want the full story, ask her. I'm not playing the gossip game. He backed off pretty quickly after that. While I was cleaning up the social mess, I also had to deal with work. Thankfully, my boss was chill about it. I explained the situation in private, emphasizing that it wouldn't affect my performance. Tessa had been posting vague, passive-aggressive quotes about betrayal and heartbreak. Stuff like some people will throw away diamonds to chase stones. Real subtle. At first, I was tempted to respond and call her out for the nonsense. But then I stopped myself. Why stoop to her level? She wanted a reaction, and I wasn't giving her one. Instead, I reported her post for harassment and moved on. That was the real turning point for me, realizing I didn't owe her or anyone an explanation anymore. My life with her had blinded me to what I truly wanted in a partner, someone who had my back, not someone who'd turn on me the second things got tough. By the time a few months had passed, Tessa's antics started to fade into the background. People moved on, and so did I. The family stopped bringing her up. The whispers at work died down, and her online posts eventually dried up. It was like she finally realized she couldn't keep milking the situation for sympathy. I'd like to say I forgave her, but honestly, I didn't. I learned to never settle for less than I deserve. Looking back now, I don't regret a thing. I'm in a better place. Mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Life's too short to waste on people who don't value you. If I've learned anything, it's this: the best revenge isn't getting even, it's living well. And with that, this chapter of my life is officially closed. Thanks for reading until the end.